So again, for those watching on YouTube, if you do need the slides for today, just drop that below. Also, if you're watching on YouTube or in this room, for those participating, thank you. If you haven't already, please go to the link later and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And you can help me with my 12-week year by doing so. So that being said, thank you again for being here. It's exciting to see. A little bit nervous when it was like 15 minutes till and there was like 6 people in here, and I was talking to Michael and I'm like, dude, like, really? We lost 75% in 6 days? So to see this amount of people here, it's excited, and more importantly, it's exciting that you're here for you. Like Eric Thomas yesterday in thing we were watching, he was asked one time, what book are you're reading, like who do you really care about? He's like, dude, the book you need to care about is the book about you. Like, what are you writing, or what are other people potentially writing? Ed Milet talks about that. Somebody else is writing a book or is being impressed by you and by your actions. So the more that we do for ourselves, ultimately, the more people we can impact. So let's get into it. I kept this again from last week just because it is probably one of my biggest takeaways in reading the book is that accountability is simply ownership of your own activity. And there's nobody in here. It doesn't matter if you have your weekly accountability meetings and your partner. They're not going to do anything. They can't keep you accountable. It's your actions and your daily activity that creates that ownership. And we go there. Technical difficulties. There, oh. You guys got all the answers. So, failure. I'm not going to write everything down this time, but I want to hear what does failure mean to us? Feel free to raise your hand, shout it out. I don't really care. Robbie.
Not finishing or setting your mind to it, or just not completing the goal that you set in your mind.
Okay. Missing goals.
Yeah.
Lori?
Acting like a victim.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely also a mindset too.
Yeah.
Giving up, trying. I don't think necessarily missing your goal is a failure as long as you really tried. But I know that in my life there's been things I've wanted to do, and if I didn't even try, that was a failure.
Yeah. You'll miss 100% of the chances you don't take? What are you gonna say?
Is it giving up?
Yeah. Giving up, quitting. What else?
Accomplishing maybe 80% of what you were wanting to get done. It's not a failure, but it's better than, like you say, not trying.
Mm-hmm. So, anybody over here? Just the quiet side. All right. But ironically, most of those words were all negative, because I think that through our growing up, right, we're taught don't fall down, right? Don't crash the bike, don't do this or that, and so we look at failure as a negative instead of chasing the failure. As an example, I'll use myself. I mean, a year ago tomorrow is when I came over to EXP, and I used the first, it was about 8 months before I joined the Culver's Grade team. I failed fast and at a lot of things, and really pushed the limitations to see, was this lead gen the best? No? All right, well, it was a failure, but it was certainly not a negative, right? I mean, it cost me a lot of money, but I learned how quickly to then redirect it and not continue to waste that time or energy or money in that. Same thing with our effort, go all in on an activity to see if it works or it doesn't work, and then learn from it, re-aim, and then go a different direction. Education, again, it's another way of you're pushing the extreme of different things that you learn. Go all in on a couple different YouTube people, like a Tom Ferry, right? Really consume his education. That's not a failure type thing, but it's a matter of just going in and learning what you need to do that starts to work for you. And then through that, producing evidence of what does and doesn't work. You'll find out. I was listening to the Fast Forward movement, that's what it's called, right? FFM, from a couple weeks ago, and that's what they're talking about with doing copyright and doing a couple email blasts, and then you go back and you see, okay, was this open or not? If it's not, chuck it. If it was, then what do we need to do more of that? Or what was your database size? All right, so fear and rejection, most of the time we don't want to fail, right? Because it's the fear of failure that will even preclude us from attempting anything. It's the fear of rejection. Personally, as a sophomore in high school, when I was 4'11" and I weighed 95 pounds, there was a lot of fear of rejection, right? From girls, from being picked on what team or not picked at all, right? So you kind of learn which sports you can get picked at. I played left out in football. I was on team because they didn't cut anybody, but didn't get any playing time, except for when I broke my arm. That's the one game I got in, which is weird. I think we were probably just losing that bad. It didn't really matter. But we tend, again, just like the failure aspect, our brain wants to just protect us, right? It wants to protect us from that rejection, from those fears, because it wants to keep us safe, right? So we start then not doing things because we don't want to get rejected. And again, from the meeting yesterday, Eric Thomas talked about running towards rejection to get the needed redirection. Run towards that rejection so that make 50 phone calls so you know what does or doesn't work on the phone, and then you tailor a little bit, and then you make some changes, and then you make another 50 phone calls. And who wants to get rejected 10% of the time? Nobody does, but we have to do that so that we can then get better as well. They're growing pains. Going back to being 4'11", thankfully I grew, but it was painful to grow through it. It's not called growing feel good. It's not growing comfort zone, right? It's growing pains, and that's in everything. There is a pain that goes through that. When you're working out, you are literally tearing your muscles down to then build them up. Also, kind of like the military. Our first week in the military, you're getting torn down to not thinking you're a human, just so that you can then get built back up to what they want you to be. So the same thing we do here with our goals, and we want to make sure and help continue to realize what we're doing right, so that we can do more of that and less of what we don't need to be doing. And he talked about yesterday too. Rejection hurts because it leaves an emotional wound. But what we don't want it to do is to leave a permanent scar. We can't get rid of that, right? And then doing what we need to do in spite of our fears, such as making the phone calls. And then, of course, through facing our fears and enduring rejection, we develop progress. And it's the progress that keeps us alive. And we don't typically get excited about, sometimes, about the close of the deal, right? Then it's like, okay, cool, it's payday. But it's that process of getting the accepted offer. It's the challenge of negotiating and learning different things throughout the transaction, and then in helping the person accomplish their goals that fuels us to then do more of that, right? And then with that, as we continue to deal with our fear and rejection, the more that we can accomplish, then we're creating an environment of abundance. And when you get rid of the fear, the mindset changes. You go operate from a place of abundance versus lacking. So if you're in this room, I know Jeff has talked about before, you know, when new things are happening, there's those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and then those that wonder what just happened, right? So it's the first phase of that is called early adopters, and this is more of a technology aspect of things, or you know, investments or different things like that. But if you're in this room, you're part of the early adopters of what we're trying to accomplish. And as you accomplish your goals over the next 12 weeks, other people will notice in our organization, outside of our organization, other people are going to notice that you're doing something different. Your clients, your family, you know, whatever it happens to be, because I'm sure not all 12-week goals are just going to be about real estate. And so with that, yeah, what you accomplish will most likely help somebody else to accomplish their goals, because they'll see you. Oh wow, you stuck with that, right? Conversely, not accomplishing your goals would not help somebody else to accomplish theirs. And as we accomplish our goals, right, we're again giving back into the community and doing more things to help create that abundance of something that's impactful and meaning, and it's not just a transactional mindset. So leading me to what are we building? So as you're thinking through your 12-week year goal, your production goal, what is it? How big is your pipeline? Do you have today in your pipeline what you need to accomplish in your 12-week year? Because if you don't, then maybe either the goal needs to throttle back a little bit, or you really have to accelerate what you're doing from a lead gen and a prospecting aspect. Then what am I doing to create consistency and sustainability? What will I build to achieve, or what will I build that will achieve my production goals so I can taste and feel the success? Again, you want the goals to be achievable, not completely outlandish, but you also don't want them to be easy. As far as tasting the success, you know, it's kind of like, who here is flown first class? So everybody that just raised their hand knows what it feels like to get treated like a human on an airplane. 100%. And because that's just reality. Like I just came from Indiana. I flew back. The first leg I was able to upgrade to first class. And like Danielle said, that's how you're supposed to travel. and so it was nice. Unfortunately, it was the first part of how I traveled. And then I wasn't able to do the second leg. And then I was even in business then, and it's like, you don't exist. You know, you don't get the champagne when you sit down, you don't get the towels, you don't, like, it's not as fun. So then you do things that make it so that you can sustain that level of lifestyle or whatever it is that's important to you. And again, I talked about the abundance, and we want to get to a place where we can do what we need to do versus what we have to do. And what I mean by that is, when you need, that's feeding your soul. When you're doing something that your soul says, I need this to feel good, right? Versus have to is just out of necessity. We have to because we have to pay the bills. If we're constantly just closing a deal because the mortgage is due, or rent's due, or the car payment's due, it becomes a hassle. And it's just another job, and then you don't get excited about it. Versus having so much of the abundance to where you can operate out of a place of helping others because it's what fuels you. It's a different way of accomplishing our goals. And then what's your overarching why and the wall of which everything else serves? So like I talk about, my wall being that, not waiting for that first escrow outside of Barnes & Noble where I couldn't buy a coffee 5 years ago. And so now everything that I do is to make sure that wall is so far away, and it's just unimaginable that I'll ever be at that point again. The opposite, and the reason why I think the wall is easier to work with is because we can taste and feel it. We have experienced it, whatever your wall is. The why is something we're running towards but we haven't accomplished it yet. So your brain can't tell you, hey, do this to get this. Your brain can tell you do this or don't do this so that you don't ever have that again, right? Phone calls, for example. I can make 25 phone calls because I don't ever want to have that feeling again. But for the private jet, I've never felt it, like whatever. If I don't make the calls, maybe I will make the calls, maybe I'll get there, I don't know. But my overarching why is to end veteran homelessness. Since I haven't done that, obviously, if you drive around the streets, I haven't done that, so it is a more challenging thing to understand. However, I can tell you, everything that I do from this to my transactions to everything is to serve those two things. So as you're going through and creating your goals, what is it that you really want to accomplish in life, not just in business, and understanding that as you go through these next 12 weeks, as you hit your goals on a weekly basis, every couple weeks on a monthly basis, you'll become more disciplined, which is the most dangerous person in the room, is the most disciplined, because they're not going to get sidetracked. So now we will get into, I'm putting mine up here just to give you an example of what it can look like. Okay, so please don't take it for more than that, but I want to give an idea and kind of what it looks like as you progress. If you choose to get into that system, I know some of you reached out about the prices. I don't know how much it was when I first did it, so or whether or not you can just go to new.achieve and get it that way to have it online. But so these are mine. 12-week year, 150K in GCI. How will that happen, right? So my tactic is, and it shows right here when it's due. So I put 125 calls to buyers every week. So every single week, this is going to show up in my 12-week year. So as you're writing them down, you'll be able to write either weekly or which weeks do you want that, do you need that to accomplish? Not by that week, but in that week, what do you want to accomplish? Another example, so run a sponsored ad on Instagram. I'm just going to do that weekly. So for the next 12-week years, I'll have different ads running on Instagram. MailChimp content planning. So here you can see I have weeks 1 and week 6. So that's where I'll come in, spend 3 hours, do a complete dump into the next 6 weeks of everything that I want planned out, and then it's done for the week. This won't show up again until week 6. Right? So, however, I'll go through the rest and I'll kind of go show you what it looks like and then we'll get into it. My second goal, be at 195 and 12% body fat. So for that, 4 times a week working out with weights, cardio at least 1 hour a week, 3 times a week. Replace 1 alcohol drink with 1 glass of tea 3 times a week.
Gotta be realistic, right?
You gotta start somewhere. Somebody wanted me to go dry in July. I told them to kick rocks. That rhymes, but and then 5 gallons of water. And in some of these things, it's all about preparing for that, right? So when I was going over the stuff today with Michael, who's my accountability partner, I was talking about this week I'm gonna go get 5 gallons of water, put them, in the kitchen so that I know, hey, by the end of next week, those all gotta be gone. Either you do it or you don't, right? So, same thing with working out and getting up early, right? It's a matter of planning the night before, putting the clothes out, getting the gym bag ready. The more you do to prepare yourself, the less that when you wake up or when that alarm goes off, you're gonna roll over because you just know it's all easy. You're out of the house in 15 minutes and you're on the way. And then, as I alluded to earlier, grow my YouTube channel to 250 subscribers. Ultimately, I wanted 1,000, but smaller goals. So in weeks 1, 4, and 8, I'm going to run an ad to add subscribers. And then personally, every week, send it to 10 people with an ask of subscribing. And then, thanks to Danielle, add a link to my signature. Because I was told I need to do that. So I put that in week 1, so then it'll get done. And then you can print it that way and so forth. But what I wanted to show you is, let's say I do this, I do that, or I don't. This thing's gonna be broke by the next time I use it. No, I mean the string. All right, so we'll just go with that. All right. I don't have a fingerprint.
It's just laggy.
There we go. All right, so we see in week 2, I still have my MailChimp content planning because I didn't do it in week 1, according to what I just checked off or didn't check off. I still have this because that's weekly. I still have my calls because that's weekly. But now in weeks 2, 4, 6, and 8, I have a new goal in here of having 2 new buyers approved. So now if I don't get that done here, now next week it's gonna compound. And so they don't just go away. So it's a matter of wanting to make sure that you, look at that. And then you'll have a goal here. This will tell you how much you've completed for that week. In the book, it talks about you want to be at about 80%. If you're at 80%, you will achieve your overarching goals. Doesn't matter. But then you can see down here, like, went to 5K weeks 3, 7, and 11. So by the 3rd week, that then pops up in my goals that has to be done. So that's that from a overview of what it should look like. So now what I want to do is there anybody here that does not have an accountability person? Okay, so we have 1. Is there anybody else?
What if they're not here? I have one, but she could make it today.
All right, so then why don't you 2 partner up for today so you guys can have somebody to build your 12 weeks with. And everybody can do that. Just jump in. It doesn't have to be the exact partner. And even in the book it says 2 or 3 people. But this is more brainstorming today, putting down some of your goals. I know you and Rex have been working very diligently. It's been exciting to see that. Yeah, start putting your goals down and start formulating what it's going to look like, and we'll kind of reconvene, hear some of that, and then we'll be out of here.
Jason?
So what I want to do is kind of hear what you got out of that, or maybe what some of the goals were or are, tactics associated, and then we will wrap up and get you out of here. So who wants to go first with what they kind of got out of that exercise?
I would say that we all, not all, but we do share some very similar goals.
Okay.
And I think
What are some of them?
Well,
even some of our means to get there.
Yeah.
yeah, not so much on the tactics, although we need to put those down, but, you know, for us, it was, you know, the weight, the physical improvement, and having those goals and within either a 6-week or a 12-week program.
Okay.
We have real estate goals.
What are some of the real estate goals?
Well, for me, I'd like to have 3 transactions in play within 6 weeks.
Okay. So in a 12-week year, do you want to have them all closed?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I guess nobody wants a 45-day escrow
Yeah.
anyways. Best escrows are the close kind. Who else wants to share some of their goals or what they got out of the activity?
I got out of the activity that I didn't realize there was just 3 goals. I was trying to do like 10.
Me too.
So I had to like really condense it down and edit, and that's always like something that's hard for me. So I'm like, oh, I can do all this, and no, you need to edit it down.
Who else had a challenge with having too many goals to accomplish? And so with that's the exact reason why this is so important. Because that's why we typically don't accomplish the goals that we have, is because you're trying to chase everything, and so nothing gets done. You feel out of balance the whole time, right? Because you're over here, you know, maybe you have kids, you're at the soccer game, but you feel like you're not giving to them because you're on your phone, and you're trying to close a deal, and then you've got the Wednesday meeting, or you've got this, you've got that. Gotta get to the gym in the morning, and so nothing gets done. And so there's got to be some sort of planned neglect, right? I'm gonna not do as much of that because I'm gonna go and get this handled, knowing that if I get this goal handled, I'm not gonna have to deal with it every single day or month or year, right? And like I talked about before, as those goals get handled, when we do it in a different way, we start creating different consistencies around it that then make it a little bit easier, right? Like it's like the spinning plates, right? So when you come back to that, maybe your real estate goal this time around is to do 3 in a quarter or in the 12-week year. But when you come back to it in Q1 of next year in that 12-week year, 3 is easy for you now. Because you put systems in place that taught you how to get the first 3 in 3 months that you can implement then, and you're not having to come up with anything new. And now your goal is 6, right? Like you ladies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I tried to split all these into 2 and make 6.
Well, I mean
He's
6
like, no.
6 deals.
It's 3.
Not,
I'm like,
Oh,
yeah,
right,
not 6
it's
goals,
not-
but
it's 6
but 6
units.
deals, 6 units,
Yeah.
right? And then and then that'll change. Maybe instead of a unit goal next time, it's going to be a gross commission or a
Yeah.
volume goal,
Yeah.
because things will have changed by then as well.
Right.
What are some other goals that we got out of the 12-week year? Laura?
Well, I've read all the books on this, like James Clear, Atomic Habits, and the Tiny Habits, and BJ Fogg, and I was so into it. And then when I got into real estate, I had to spend so much time learning how to do real estate that I had to let it all go. I just couldn't fit it all in, so it's constantly learning, and studying, going to all these classes. Now it's been a year, and your timing is perfect because I can start revisiting all that. And the most thing I got out of it was make tiny little habits that I can achieve and not get too overzealous and try like, I'm gonna do 10 transactions. So I just have monthly 1 to 2 listings and 5 escrows total, so I have some leeway in there because I'm right now a buyer's agent. And then clean up my emails because it's so overwhelming. I have too many. And do a bi-monthly blog, thank you for that tip, newsletter. So, because I spend a lot of time on Facebook and I get a lot of clients through Facebook, so I might as well take advantage of the time I'm writing stuff and turn those stories that I write for little disasters that happen and turn it into a newsletter. So maybe it'll be a little more exciting for people.
And you can now use video.
The 2 for 1.
And obviously, hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have the content studio done. So you can come down here and have that as well. It's just another resource for you.
So a blog, I'm gonna do a blog.
Perfect. And you can have that on a once a month. You can have it at one point during your 12-week year, and then make sure that I did hear some things as far as weekly, bi-weekly, those kinds of things. You just want to make sure that your goals are for that week. Right? So if it's a bi-monthly, then it needs to be in weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Right? Also, think about the activity that you're doing and how it aligns to that goal. For an example, if you are trying to get leads from open houses to then close them because you want X amount of units in the 12-week year, well, don't put that you're going to do an open house in week 11, right? We need to front load how many open houses we're going to do so that you can get the leads, so they can get shopping and then find the house, because most likely they're not going to get in contract on the house you're showing. Right? So just be kind of cognizant of that, kind of like with my core fat campaigns I'll do in weeks 3, 5, and 8, I think. So those will go out during those periods of time, so then I'll have the opportunity to hear back from those people. You got 4 weeks on the back end of that for them to respond. Does that make sense? Anybody have to increase their goals from maybe talking to your partners about, oh wow, that was kind of a small goal and you thought bigger, or were we more contracting from my goal's too big and now I got to shrink it down a little bit so it's achievable.
Yeah, I had to do that.
More achievable.
Yeah.
And with goal setting, we want to make sure that they are SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So like I saw one, it was to be fit, right? Well, what's that look like, right? It's got to have a number attached to it. Also, if you have a number attached to it, you got to have your starting, right? You got to figure out where you're at. You know, like if you go to a brand new mall, you got to. It's not which store I need to go to. It's where are you at? Where's the "You Are Here" sticker, so that we know what we're measuring and the progress that we're making. So if it is a fitness goal, then get on the scale, do your body fat, so that you know what it is or what you need to accomplish by the end of the year. Anything else?
I do love the accountability partner.
Awesome.
It's easy to let yourself down over and over again. You say that, but if he's gonna check in on me.
Perfect. And then, you know, it's there for a reason. And then in turn, you will start owning it as well because of that accountability partner. You'll start taking ownership of your own, and then you'll help. Obviously, it's reciprocal too. You'll help them be more accountable to their goals. And it just kind of all works together. So with that, thank you again. Danielle wants us to get a picture. So let's do that before we get out of here. And thank you. The year starts on Monday. So have fun.
Did you do a third one? Well, I was trying to
That's what mine is too. Because I put quality